Good morning, everyone. Today on Perspectives, we're continuing to explore the ramifications of living during the COVID-19 pandemic. We've talked to government officials as well as our state and local health officials about the medical and economic effects of this virus. Now, we turn our focus today to the role of law enforcement. As the virus spread and the death toll continued to mount, cities and towns in Alabama resorted to mandatory curfews, restricting commerce and public gatherings in hopes it would curtail COVID-19. Ordinances were set and adopted. In the state of Alabama, law enforcement became involved. According to police logs in Alabama, some people were arrested for violating curfews or were taken into custody for being involved in public gatherings. And yet, as the weeks passed, some law enforcement officials began to question the severity of those same ordinances, as well as to ask how to enforce it. Well, shortly before the stay-at-home restrictions were relaxed, Baldwin County Sheriff Huey Mack sent a letter to Alabama Governor Kay Ivey, saying that his department would not enforce some of Governor Ivey's safer at-home orders. Instead, the sheriff asked the governor for a modification, in short, to allow for certain businesses to open and to allow churches to open their doors for worship. Fox 10's Baldwin County reporter Hal Shurick has more on the sheriff's letter to the governor in this report.
Sheriff Mack sent a letter to Governor Ivey. He shared his message to Baldwin County citizens on the department's Facebook page. Mack says he's not defying the governor's order by not enforcing it.
I think there has been some talk about defiance, and that is just doing what you want to do. What we decided to do is we wanted to raise this issue to the next level. That's why I wrote the letter to the governor first, urging her to go ahead and open the businesses and open the houses of worship with restrictions.
Sheriff Mack says Baldwin County has had some of the least numbers of residents infected with COVID-19 in the state, and after much consideration, wrote the letter to Governor Ivey. Mack didn't provide a copy of the letter, but said he told her the time was right to open the state back up for business.
Open house parties, big parties, no, that's not allowed. We're talking about businesses and we're talking about houses of worship. Everybody still needs to be smart in this process and use their common sense, but we believe that those entities such as businesses and houses of worship should be given the freedom to move forward.
And that was Hal Shurick reporting. Now, as Governor Ivey continues to relax controls over public beaches as well as business and restaurant restrictions, a question still remains. What is the role of law enforcement in the age of COVID-19? And joining us this morning, Mobile County Sheriff Sam Cochran and Baldwin County Sheriff Huey Mack. We thank them both for their participation as we ask how they are protecting their officers in the field during this health crisis as well, and more importantly, how their deputies continue their efforts to fight crime. Now, we will look into these new and precarious medical times and what law enforcement's role is now and will be in the coming months. The Perspectives continues after this break. And joining us now, Sheriff Sam Cochran, Sheriff of Mobile County. And Sheriff Cochran, we want to thank you for joining us this morning through Skype, as we are, of course, all practicing this social distancing. Question for you. You are the sheriff over the county with the highest numbers in the state now for the last few weeks. Mobile County, both in cases and, so sad and unfortunately, in the amount of deaths in the county as well. And if I'm not mistaken, you have had at least one of your people there with the jail that I believe that you've lost as well. What is going on now? Did you see this kind of thing coming here to Mobile County?
Well, I think as we saw it grip the whole world, we knew eventually it would be here. And then when it started happening, I guess it spread in Mobile County quicker than was expected. I still am at a loss to know why Mobile County is leading the state. I think we do have a high number of long-term care places in Mobile, nursing homes and the like. And so it was surprising, certainly to say the least, to find out that we were within a short period of time advanced past Jefferson County. But you know, in hindsight, we do know this, that Jefferson County immediately started testing. They were able to acquire some test kits. They tested more of their people, and we did not have the kits available in Mobile County for quite some time. So I think the people in Jefferson County that got tested positive were better able to isolate themselves and stop the spread, whereas in Mobile County, we had people that were spreading it that did not know they had it. And so when we did start getting the test, we started having an acceleration of those positive, and so we've continued to see that trend. But those are just some possibilities. In hindsight, I think our health professionals will look back over the data and be able to give us better explanations. But, it breaks out in different parts of the state. This past week, I think the governor reported that Montgomery County was having an uptick, and so they very well could catch up with us.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the governor expressed some concern about Montgomery County in her address this week. When you look at the Metro Jail, that was one of the concerns that you had early on also. How have you tackled that issue?
Well, when this thing first broke out, when we first had maybe our first case in Mobile County, we had as many as 1,630 people in the county jail. That included about 1,400 inmates and about 230 workers, including our corrections officers as well as our healthcare workers and other support staff. So we were able to get the jail population, the inmates themselves, down to about 1,040 or so with the help of some of the judges and the city of Mobile allowing people over a certain age to sign their own bonds if they were in there for misdemeanors and certain misdemeanors, but not DUIs and not domestic violence. So we got that down, and we've kept the population down to around 10,070 today. But we've had the cases in the jail, we've had it spread, but we've been able to isolate those cases right away. As far as our employees, we've had a little over 30 employees come down with the virus, and as you mentioned earlier, unfortunately, one of those workers passed away. She was a healthcare worker working for the company named Mack that works in our jail.
Yeah, it was a very touching story shared about her, to be a light there, as the warden, Trey Oliver, shared, to be a light in a place that you don't have as much of that as you would love to have. When you look at the amount of equipment needed, have you had enough equipment as well as the testing capability that you'd like to have?
Well, certainly at first we did not have enough equipment. We had shortages in PPE. There were no tests available for the first several weeks. Even if we had somebody that we believe had a confirmed case, we went on and treated them as if they did have the case because there were not enough testing kits called the PCR test that would absolutely confirm the positives. But since then, we've gotten enough of those kits, and anytime we have someone that we suspect is being sick, we test them, isolate them, quarantine the section of the jail, and that way, by having several different levels of quarantine and spaces, we're able to keep it from spreading when it does break out with someone.
Sheriff Corcoran, as you look at and evaluate the areas around the county where you are policing and providing some of the guidance for folks to make proper decisions, are there any hot spots that you've seen pop up recently? Now, we do know that numbers are increasing in parts of South Mobile County. We've really not seen any hot spots that I could readily identify, other than, of course, the nursing homes and the jail. But we track that through the Board of Health by zip codes and stuff like that, but nothing any smaller than by zip codes have I seen a hot spot. What do you see your role with the rest of the county as relates to law enforcement's position now to make sure that people are abiding by the recommendations from both the governor's office and the CDC and, of course, our state and county health officers? Well, I think for the most part, the majority of people are practicing good social distancing and hopefully good hygiene and things like that. And I think, what was desired to flatten the curve, all that stuff has happened. But at some point in time, you can't just sort of keep people, I guess, locked up and locked down and stuff like that, because they've got to, get out and about. And I think that, that's just something we've got to face going forward, that there is going to be some people that catch it and get over it. But we try to educate everybody as best we can. And if we get a call or complaint, we'll point out what they're doing wrong. But it's really the last ditch effort before we would take some type of physical enforcement action. How involved are you with supporting Dauphin Island with the beaches there? And of course, the beaches are back open again. Well, we would assist them if they needed our assistance, but to my knowledge, we've not been called upon for any type of assistance. And of course, as the summer progresses, we'll see which type of events are held down there. Whether or not they would have the rodeo, I haven't heard anything on that, but we help them every year on that, and it brings a large crowd of people. I suspect
they'll have to either cancel or greatly adjust the events they have there.
As you look at the state of the county right now, as we mentioned earlier, of it being #1 in both cases and unfortunately, sadly, the deaths, where do you see us going here in the next 30 days as it relates to the flattening and, of course, the lowering of those numbers? And, you know, hopefully by the hotter parts of the summer, we'll have things back to somewhat of a normalcy.
Well, I follow it both here on a local level and a national basis, and I think as we go forward and get to a point where we look in hindsight and look at what the professionals have to say, we're going to find that there's a huge proportion of our population, particularly in the younger ages, have already had it progress through it. And so I think you'll see the gradual slowing down of the cases, and maybe it'll pick up speed with the slowing down as people progress through that. You know, I would point out it's unfortunate, but the numbers in Mobile County, there's only one person under the age of 50 has passed away. I think 19 from 50 to 65, and all the rest are over 65, and 55% have come from long-term nursing homes. So, you know, I think by identifying that, we've got to protect our elderly and those that are at risk. But I think as we learn more about it, we'll be able to do a better job going forward.
Sheriff Sam Cochran, Mobile County, we thank you so much for joining us today and giving us an update and an assessment from your perspective in law enforcement. And of course, we will be in touch to keep our viewers up to date on what's going on in Mobile County. We thank you very much.
Thank you very much as well.
Once again, Mobile County Sheriff Sam Cochran. Now, when we return, Baldwin County Sheriff Huey Hoss Mack. He joins us with perspectives as we continue in just a moment. We're talking this morning with Baldwin County Sheriff Huey Hoss Mack, and we thank him so much for joining us by Skype this morning as we continue to maintain our social distancing as well. Good morning, Sheriff Mack. As we look at this overall situation we've been in here for the last several weeks, what's your assessment of where we are now in Baldwin County as we've now reopened the beaches and, of course, reopening businesses in the county as well? Where do you see us standing there?
Well, Eric, I think we're actually doing very good. If you look at the numbers that we've had in Baldwin County, we've relatively stayed really low, considering the fact that not only we have the number of full-time residents that we have in the county, but of course our visitors are way up. We have seen an increased number in our beaches, there is no doubt, particularly over the past 2 to 3 weekends, and we expect that to continue, of course, as we get into our summer months. So we've increased our beach patrols. We've increased the presence on the beach as well as the highways going in. And while we have seen an increase in the numbers, we still have seen a lot of practicing of the social distancing and being mindful of what they need to do while visiting our beaches. We're still encouraging everybody to remain diligent. We're still in this fight, and we still want to make sure that everybody remains safe.
Have you been surprised with the numbers being so low in Baldwin County compared to your next door neighbor Mobile County's numbers being the highest in the state? And when you think about it, you've got people that live in Baldwin County that work in Mobile. So how do you think about that when you look at the big picture?
Well, I think you're exactly right, Eric. You know, we just don't look at Baldwin County as just being an isolated Baldwin County. As you said, people work in Baldwin and Escambia, Alabama, and Escambia, Florida, and so there's a lot of transient nature to all of us that live here in Baldwin County. I think one of the things we did, I was very proud of our Baldwin County Commission, who really got out in front of this early on. You know, we started having meetings on this virus the second week in March. And we got out ahead of it pretty quick with our messaging. A lot of things happened very quickly within that first 2 weeks. And I think that that made the difference. And I also think that that really proves that what you can do by being proactive and following some of these suggestions can really help out in the long run.
As you talk to your health officials in the county, any concerns about the beaches being reopened now and the numbers of people coming in from all around the country?
Absolutely. You know, it's not just the COVID situation that you worry about, although that's, you know, the first thing on our minds because of the situation we're in. So we keep our messaging going on about the social distancing and about being cautious and making sure that you're, you know, if you go to a public place, a public shopping area, something like that, and you are a person that's a highly susceptible, you know, to wear your mask, to practice all those good hygiene practices as washing your hands or have some hand sanitizer, but also the increased traffic flow. That's always a big issue for us here in Baldwin County. We see a lot of increased traffic, particularly as we go from Memorial Day to July the 4th, two holidays that are relatively close together, and so we'll be monitoring that as well.
Will you be watching the gas stations? Because some of the numbers in Mobile County, they believe, are people traveling on that I-10 corridor. Will you be doing anything special at the gas stations along the interstate there, I-10, and the other highways that people are using, like 231?
Yes, of course, in Baldwin County, our three main arteries that we have that fueling the south end of the county are Interstate 10, and then you go down the Beach Express and go down Highway 59. So we'll be monitoring those. We have increased patrols not only on the highways, we actually have increased patrols on the beach during this time in cooperation with our Orange Beach Police Department and Gulf Shores Police Department. We'll be working with them, and we'll be monitoring all those. We also have seen an increase in state troopers. We have some additional state troopers now that are assigned to Baldwin County, and we appreciate that.
What about the county jail? You've had some pretty good success there. What did you do?
Well, early on, Eric, what we started doing is about the second to third week in March, we went ahead and went in a what we call a health security lockdown within our facility. So any individual that came to the Baldwin County Correction Center was automatically quarantined, whether they fit the criteria or were symptomatic at all. So if, as you know, most people that come to jail usually bond out within 24 hours. They're usually booked in, booked out. So we separated those people and did not allow them to go to general population. And then if they were going to remain here for that period of time, if they couldn't make bond or they weren't allowed to be released because of an order of the court, we automatically quarantined them for that 14 days. And we monitored them. We did such things as, of course, taking their temperature, if they had been outside the United States, if they had been to another state that had a high ratio of infections, and we also had several that we had to test. So as of today, we've been very blessed in that we've had no active cases within the correction center of inmates or employees.
Have you been involved at all with the situation with the Veterans Home to make sure that you're giving them any type of support needed from the sheriff's office?
Well, our Veterans Home is here in Bay Minette. There's been a cooperative effort by a lot of the public health agencies and veteran support groups. We do maintain contact with them, and as I understand it, everything's going well. We've actually, I had a very good friend of mine whose wife has actually been in that center, and he is one of those that had to go out and visit with her, through the window, the social distancing. And so certainly those individuals are on our prayers, and anything that we can do to assist them, we would greatly do that.
You make us think about the force itself. How has the law enforcement group there been as relates to having any issues and concerns when you're going out to these calls?
Well, of course, it is a great concern. We have had multiple exposures, not only with the sheriff's office, but my understanding in law enforcement in Baldwin County. And those are individuals that will respond to a call that either say they have either lived with or been with somebody that has tested positive. A lot of people, sometimes when you respond to a call, they may say that they think they have the virus or that they're symptomatic. And so we've had to increase our PPE equipment to our deputies in the form of masks and gloves. Hand sanitizer early on was a big issue, and we had to meet that need. And so our deputies now are being cautious, but of course we don't have the option of not responding. So they're taking the appropriate cautions, both in dealing with the public and dealing with those individuals that we have to arrest. And we try to keep track of those. If there is an exposure, we of course have our individuals tested. We did participate in the program that Mayor Stimpson and Director Barber in Mobile started for the testing for first responders. I myself was tested, and the majority of individuals within the sheriff's office have been tested as well.
Sheriff Mack, you were one of several sheriffs around the state who sort of went against the governor's recommendations. How difficult a decision was that for you?
Well, Eric, when that conversation started, keep in mind, this was an order issued by the health officer for the state. And in Mobile County, you have a separate health officer in Mobile and Jefferson, but in Baldwin County, we fall directly under the state health officer. And then, of course, it was done under the power of the governor having declared a state of emergency. And so it was kind of new territory for us. Normally what we deal with is orders of curfew and things of that nature in an emergency order. This one actually went very extensive, as you know, in shutting down businesses and things of that nature. And really when it became of particular concern was the fact when it started to go over to houses of worship and regulating that. And of course, we were advised, and we had multiple meetings. This was not an isolated decision. As I've said before, we had multiple meetings with our partners in the criminal justice and justice system about whether or not these orders should go all the way to a custodial arrest. Naturally, we believe that the governor had the authority and orders to deal with matters of public health, such as regulations, inspections, requiring certain things, the social distancing, all those things. But to the form of a custodial arrest, it started taking on a little bit different attitude, if you would, about that. And based upon that, we just simply said that we were going to enforce the governor's order, which we have been. We would do all those things, but we would do it short of a custodial arrest because we had other options that we could pursue.
All right, Sheriff Mack, we thank you so much for joining us this morning and sharing. And of course, we will be in touch with you as we go into the months now of having more people back into hopefully as normal a routine once again. We thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Have a good day.
All right. And once again, Baldwin County Sheriff Huey Hoss Mack. Perspectives continues in just a moment. And welcome back. Our health, governmental, and law enforcement officials have shared how far-reaching the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic are. As more businesses open and people start trying to get back to a sense of normalcy, the health officials warn, though, that a second peak or wave of the virus could affect many communities. Now, if that happens, some government officials have said that there is a possibility we would have to enforce another stay-at-home order. Now, they say that the way to keep that from happening is for all of us to continue to be vigilant with our social distancing, as well as washing our hands frequently. On our next Perspectives, we'll hear from a representative of our business community and their employees. He'll give us a forecast of how long it may take for a full recovery. Now, we'll also learn what life is like now for individuals and families struggling with addiction. And hear the serious concerns of our homeless community that they have about staying safe and healthy as the virus spreads throughout the Gulf Coast. Please join us on our next Perspectives for all of that dialogue as our three guests share their insight. Well, if you have any questions relating to law enforcement, please contact the Mobile County Sheriff's Office as well as the Baldwin County Sheriff's Office. The numbers are right there on the screen. And again, join us next Saturday morning at 9 for Perspectives as we discuss important issues and seek solutions. Now, if you have ideas of topics that you'd like for us to address, just drop it to us at perspectives@fox10tv.com. I'm Eric Reynolds. Have a great week.